Hello my dear friends and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Joy and today in this video we will be analyzing the 2019 interim budget in depth. First of all, let me tell you what is the content that we will cover in this lecture. First of all, we will see why an interim budget was presented this year. We will also analyze the key takeaways from the budget. We will analyze three important schemes under the budget which was presented. PM Kisan, that is Pradhan Mantri Kisan Yojana. We will also discuss about the income tax rebate and we will also discuss about Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Mandhan. And this lecture would be more of a kind of analytical type than factual. So we will be analyzing what will be the impact of this budget on inflation, on the fiscal deficit target of the government, on the targets set by FRBMA. We will also see the impact on revenue deficit. We will see what impact it will have on investment and consumption. We will see impact on disinvestment and we will also understand what is missing in this budget or what more could have been added in this budget. So this will be the content for this lecture. So let us start. But before starting, let me tell you we have all Pendrive courses if you are preparing for any competitive examination like SSC bank examination. We also provide Pendrive courses for UPSC optional subjects for various railway examinations, defense examination, NABARD, RBI grade B, CNET, civil service examination, CLAT examination, state PSCs, etc. So you can call in these numbers for more details or you can check our website for more details. Now let us start. But before I move on with the content, I would like to clarify one thing. You will find another video which was presented by Dr. Mahipal Singh Rathore on our channel StudyIQ. In that video, Mahipal sir has explained about all the provisions, all the schemes, all the proposals that were made in this budget. So as we said in the beginning itself, this lecture would be more of an analytical type. Like we will see what is the impact the provisions of this budget will have on inflation, on fiscal deficit, on revenue deficit, on investment, on consumption, on farmers' income, etc. So this will be more of a kind of analytical type of lecture. So please, I recommend everyone to watch the video on Budget 2019 which was presented by Dr. Mahipal Singh Rathore, which is available on the StudyIQ channel for more factual understanding of the budget. So if you watch this video before you watch my video, it will give you more understanding or more clarity about the content. So let us start. So first of all, I would like to give a short clarification regarding why did the government present an interim budget this year. So the reason is that the general Lok Sabha elections are ahead and there is only a little time for the government to get approval from the parliament for various grants to ministries and departments. And the most important reason why an interim budget was presented this year is because it is a prerogative of the new government which would be elected soon, maybe in 4-5 months period of time, to signal its policy direction. So the policy direction of the government, be it any government, it is reflected through the budget. It is through the budget that a government will make all the plans and proposals or the announcements of new schemes, etc. So it is the prerogative of the new government. So the present government has very less time, that is about 4 to 5 months ahead for them. So it is not right that they present a full-fledged budget. So that is the reason why this year the government has presented an interim budget instead of a full-fledged budget. Now moving on, let us see some important key takeaways from the budget. So I have explained in the beginning itself, we will be discussing about the three important key takeaways which were mentioned in the budget this year. The first one is regarding the new Yojana which is aimed at the farmers, improving the welfare of the farmers in the country, that is Pradhan Mantri Kisan Yojana. It is known as Pradhan Mantri Kisan Yojana or Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. So the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi, it is a direct income support initiative from the part of the government and it assures farmers an income of 6,000 rupees per annum which will be paid on 3 installments. That is an installment of rupees 2,000 each. So 2,000 each into 3 which will be paid to the farmer and the conditions are that the farmer should earn less than 2 hectares of land. So, farmers who own less than 2 hectares of cultivable land shall be eligible for this scheme. So, this scheme was introduced in order to help the rural farmers to boost the rural incomes. So, this is a direct income transfer or income support scheme by which the government will directly transfer this amount to the beneficiaries' bank accounts in 3 equal installments of rupees 2000 each. And the government has said that the first installment shall be paid this year itself, and the exchequer will cost around 75,000 crore for implementing this scheme. So the cost would be 75,000 crore. Now let us analyze this scheme in detail. Now coming to what are the benefits of this scheme for the farmers or the rural households. First of all, it will boost the rural income. The farmers will be getting an assured income of rupees 6,000 per annum. So farmers will have a boost to their rural incomes. And secondly, it is helping the small and marginal farmers, because the condition is that the farmer should own cultivable land less than 2 hectares. So it is targeting the small and marginal farmers. So they will have a income support in the form of Kisan Yojana. Thirdly, it will help in addressing the agrarian unrest. Also, the farmers can meet their input cost using this money. So it will help in meeting the input cost for the farmers, like purchase of fertilizers, seeds, pesticides, etc. So these are the benefits. Now let us look into the other side of it. So we will see that many states have implemented more comprehensive scheme than Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. So if we take the examples of states like Telangana, they have implemented the Raitu Bandhu scheme. In the state of Odisha, we will see the state government has implemented the Kalia scheme. So different state governments have already implemented more comprehensive schemes. So if we look into the details of those schemes, we will see that the proposed Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi is a lesser comprehensive scheme. If we look into Telangana government's Raitu Bandhu scheme, the government provides 8,000 rupees per annum to the farmers. So now under the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi, it is only 6,000. So Telangana government offers more financial support. Now coming to Odisha government's Kalia scheme, we can call Kalia scheme as a more comprehensive scheme, because the income support assured is from 10 to 12,500 rupees per month. The income assured is 10,000 to 12,500 rupees per annum, depending on various conditions of the farmers. But it is more comprehensive in the sense that it includes not only the farmers but also the tenants, sharecroppers, landless workers, etc. So in that way, Kalia scheme is more comprehensive than the central government's Kisan Yojana. But the central government scheme can actually supplement the state government initiatives. So it will be like an icing on the cake. Now coming to the second important announcement which was made in the budget regarding the income tax rebate. So the finance minister announced that a full rebate on incomes up to 5 lakhs would be provided. Now this announcement comes as a great relief to the middle income class. So this would be benefiting around 30 million middle class taxpayers. Also the standard deduction for salaried persons raised from 40,000 to 50,000. So there is a 10,000 rupees increase in the standard deduction, and the threshold on interest on bank and post office deposits raised from 10,000 to 40,000 rupees. That means if any investment is made, like savings is made in the bank or in the post offices, the interest that a person earn on those investments are exempt from income tax for up to an amount of 40,000. Earlier it was only 10,000. So these announcements gives a relief to the middle class taxpayers comprising of self-employed or small businesses, salaried, pensioners, etc. Now coming to the in-depth analysis of this. So now according to the budget proposal, up to 5 lakh would be exempted from income tax payments. So what does it mean? Here we need to understand the concept of personal disposable income. So what is personal disposable income? Personal disposable income means the total income or the net income minus tax payments. For example, if you are earning a sum of rupees 1 lakh per month and you have to pay an income tax of rupees 10,000. So after the payment of the taxes, what is remaining is 90,000. So this is your personal disposable income. So what is meant by this personal disposable income? The amount of money that you have for your own expenditure. Because even if you are earning a 1 lakh rupee per month, you are not able to spend the entire 1 lakh because you have to pay or make a payment of rupees 10,000 as your taxes, income taxes. So what is remaining is 90,000 and this is the only amount that you can spend for your own expenditure. So this is called personal disposable income. This concept is very important here because now the government has raised the amount which is exempt from income tax. Now at present it is 2,50,000. That means up to 2,50,000 of your income is exempt from income tax. So what impact it will make on the economy or on the taxpayers? Now this 2,50,000 has been increased to 5 lakh. So your personal disposable income would increase. That means you have more money to purchase or you have more money to spend. So what will be the impact of that? The aggregate demand in the economy will increase. There will be more consumption. So aggregate demand will increase and therefore there will be an excess of demand in the economy. It can lead to demand pull inflation. So this can be one impact, that when aggregate demand is more than aggregate supply, the prices of commodities will increase and this price rise is called demand pull inflation. So this can be one impact. And second impact is that in order to meet the increased aggregate demand, the supply in the economy will increase. So when demand increases, supply also has to increase in order to meet the new demand. So supply will increase. So it essentially means that production has increased. And when production increases, the output increases. This leads to an increase in the GDP and therefore it leads to economic growth. And this is called consumption driven growth. Why it is called consumption driven growth? Because here the growth has been stimulated due to increase in consumption or increase in the aggregate demand. So that is why it is called consumption driven growth. So two impacts, one is demand pull inflation, second one is consumption driven growth. So this is all about income tax rebate. Now coming to Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Mandhan. So it is a social sector initiative by the government. Under the Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Mandhan, government aims to provide pension for unorganized sector laborers. So let us see this in detail. So this Yojana aims to provide an old age pension of rupees 3,000 per month for the unorganized sector laborers whose monthly income is less than 15,000. And the premium for this pension scheme is different for different age groups. If a person registers at the age of 18, the premium would be rupees 55 per month. Otherwise, it is rupees 100 per month. So, with this premium to be paid to the government, an assured rupees 3,000 per month pension is guaranteed to the unorganized sector workers or laborers, and it is a social sector initiative. Now, what is important here is that suppose a person who is 18 years of age, suppose he enrolls with this Yojana and pays rupees 55 per month. Now, he will be getting the benefits of this pension scheme at the age of 60 years. That is after 42 years. Now, what matters here is the rate of inflation. Now, in the year 2019, rupees 3,000 per month would seem to be a very reasonable amount to help the unorganized sector workers. But after 42 years, whether this 3,000 rupees would be enough to meet the basic necessities, that is the fact that has to be analyzed. Now moving on, we will have an in-depth analysis of this budget 2019. First, let us take into consideration the parameter inflation. How does it impact inflation? Now, in the recent times, there was a fall in the prices of food and fuel. Why food and fuel is important? Because these are highly volatile in nature. The prices of food and fuel changes suddenly. So, it is considered as volatile commodities. Now, excluding food and fuel, we have the core inflation. So, what is core inflation? Core inflation is the rate of inflation where the prices of commodities which are non-volatile are taken into consideration. That means in core inflation, we do not take into account the prices of food and fuel. Now coming to the prices of food and fuel separately and core inflation separately. In food and fuel, we have seen recently that there is a fall in the prices. That means there is lower levels of inflation. Now, secondly, coming to core inflation. Core inflation was 5.4%. That means it is a higher rate of inflation. Now, what is more important here? The prices of food and fuel will have a direct impact on cost push inflation. So, what is meant by cost push inflation? Cost push inflation means that the prices of commodities increases because there is an increased cost of production. Say for example, a manufacturing unit. This particular unit uses a machine to manufacture a particular commodity, and this machine will need certain fuel in order to run. So when the price of fuel increases, what happens? The cost of this manufacturing unit increases, and this cost will be reflected on the MRP or the sale price. So when there is an increase in cost of production, the cost of sales or the prices at which these commodities are available in the market also will increase. So a cost of production increase means a rise in the price, and this is termed as cost push inflation. So when there is an increase in food and fuel prices, it has a direct impact on cost push inflation because it increases the cost of production. Now coming to core inflation. Core inflation does not take into account the prices of food and fuel, but it takes into account the prices of non-volatile commodities. So the commodities under core inflation are highly non-volatile. That means it does not change very fast or very quickly. So from this we understand that when there is an increase in the rate of core inflation in the economy, it essentially means that the aggregate demand in the economy has increased. So when aggregate demand is more than aggregate supply, what will happen? Price will increase. Suppose the entire economy needs 100 units of a commodity, but only 80 units are available. So obvious impact would be an increase in the prices. So this is demand pull inflation. Now, what is more important here is that an increase in the price of food and fuel will cause a cost push inflation, whereas an increase in the core inflation will cause a demand pull inflation. Now, coming to the budget analysis, the government has introduced various schemes, various yojanas, various proposals under the budget. First one, the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Yojana. It provides an assured income of rupees 6,000 to the rural farmers. So this is a direct income support. So here the farmers are earning more income. So more income to the farmers means there will be more expenditure or more spending by the farmers. So it will lead to increase in the aggregate demand of the rural economy or the farmers, leading to demand pull inflation. So when there is a demand pull inflation, what happens? The core inflation will increase. Now again, increase in the amount of tax exemption or the income tax rebate. It has been increased from 2.5 to 5 lakh, and this would benefit around 30 million middle class taxpayers. So 30 million is a huge number, and remember that when this 30 million middle class have more income, that means more personal disposable income. What is personal disposable income? It is your net income minus tax payable. So 5 lakh rupees is exempted from income tax. That means there will be more money to spend. So this middle class will have more money to spend, increasing the aggregate demand in the economy, thereby increasing the demand pull inflation, which will lead to an increase in the core inflation rates. So already the core inflation rate is 5.4%. So with the announcement in this budget, it is expected that the core inflation would increase. Now next important parameter is the fiscal deficit. So what is meant by fiscal deficit? It is the excess of total expenditure over total revenue. So when total expenditure is more than total revenue, it is called fiscal deficit, and the difference between total expenditure and total revenue, which is the fiscal deficit, will give you a picture on what should be the borrowings of the government. So when your expenditure is more than your revenue, what is the option left out? You have to borrow from some sources. So government can borrow it either from the public or from the RBI or from the foreign sources or foreign countries or from multilateral institutions. So these are the options that is available with the government. So according to the finance minister, the fiscal deficit will remain around 3.4% of the GDP. But actually what was the target? 3%. And this 3% target was set up in the year 2008 itself. Now it's been almost 11 years that government is not able to achieve the fiscal deficit target. And according to the present NDA government, it promised that in the financial year 2018, it will bring down the fiscal deficit to 3%. But because of many of the populist measures of the government, because of the implementation of many schemes and yojanas, the government was unable to bring down the fiscal deficit, and according to the finance minister, it will still remain around 3.4% of the GDP. And here one important factor to be considered is the CAG report. The CAG report also recently said that there is a massive budgetary fudging. And coming to the status of different states, various states are also under bad fiscal state. That is, there is higher fiscal deficit with the state governments as well. Now, why is it important to bring down the fiscal deficit? Fiscal deficit has to be brought down because the borrowings has to reduce. So government will have to pay interest on borrowings. This will further deteriorate the situation of fiscal deficit. So government is planning, or government has to adopt a fiscal consolidation. What is meant by fiscal consolidation? It means that reducing the government's fiscal deficit and also to improve the fiscal health of the government. So it essentially means that the expenditure has to come down and revenue has to increase in order to keep a balance between the total expenditure and the total revenue of the government. And this will help the government to improve the fiscal or financial health of the government. Now coming to FRBMA. FRBMA targets at reducing the ratio of central debt to GDP to a ratio of 40% by the year 2025. So this can be achieved only through a fiscal consolidation. And we have already seen what is fiscal consolidation. Under fiscal consolidation, government has to bring down the fiscal deficit in order to improve the financial or fiscal health of the government. Now coming to revenue deficit. Revenue deficit is a mismatch between the expected revenue and expenditure. So it is the net receipts lower than projected receipts. So if the net receipts, that is the actual receipts, less than projected or estimated receipts, it is called revenue deficit. So it indicates a shortfall in the revenue for the government. Now what is important here is that the government had targeted to keep a zero revenue deficit long time back. That means the target was to keep the revenue deficit zero, or the difference between net receipts and expected receipts zero. That is, the government should actually receive what is actually estimated. But even now, the revenue deficit is 2.2% of the GDP. So, with new announcements in the budget like rebate on income tax up to 5 lakh, this will have a serious impact on the income or revenue collection of the government in the form of taxes. So, again, the revenue receipts can go down if the tax base does not increase significantly. So this will have a serious implication on the revenue deficit as well. But there is an other side to it as well. Suppose if the tax base increases, that is the number of taxpayers increases, this can bring in an increase to the government revenue. Also, when there is an increase in expenditure by the public, or when there is an increase in the aggregate demand by the public, this will bring in more indirect taxes to the government in the form of GST. When consumption increases, the tax collection in the form of indirect taxes also can increase, thereby bringing in more revenue for the government. And thirdly, when the expenditure or when the aggregate demand increases, this will further boost the production. So boosting the production means output increases, and an increase in output means there is an increase in GDP, thereby ensuring economic growth and development. So these are all some positive outcomes by these budget announcements. Now on investment and consumption, we have seen that all these measures taken by the government will boost consumption by increasing the aggregate demand. So we can better call it a consumption driven growth rather than an investment led growth. So investment led growth is when government makes more funds available for investment rather than consumption. But here what government is doing is promoting consumption by increasing income support measures, by providing more personal disposable income to the middle class, etc. So here consumption will go up, that is aggregate demand will go up, and therefore what happens, in order to meet the increased aggregate demand, supply also will increase. That means production increases, output increases, and therefore GDP increases. So here the GDP increase is due to an increase in the consumption rather than investment. So this is called consumption driven growth, and this proposals of the government can lead to a consumption driven growth. Now coming to disinvestment. In the last year budget, government had targeted around 80,000 crore rupees for disinvestment. But what happened in real was that many public sector undertakings were taken up using public fund, for example the funds from LIC. So this led to a serious mismanagement of public money, and neither the government was able to meet the disinvestment targets. So in this budget we did not see anything much about disinvestment, so this was missing in the budget. And also various sectors like education, healthcare, etc., which needed a very significant boost from the government, was also missing from the budget. But remember, it was only an interim budget, it was not a full-fledged budget. So opposition is criticizing the government for not including any measures or schemes for improving the condition of education or the healthcare, etc. And recently the IAS report was also released. So opposition is criticizing government based on all these reports. But the fact is that it is just an interim budget. A full-fledged budget would be covering all these areas. Now finally coming to a very important analysis, that is the analysis of this budget based on the impact on monetary policy. Now what is monetary policy? Monetary policy is essentially the policy which determines the interest rates in the economy, and it is taken up by the MPC or the Monetary Policy Committee. This MPC has representatives from both the union government as well as from the RBI, and it is chaired by the governor of RBI. So this is the composition of MPC, and MPC or the Monetary Policy Committee is responsible for making monetary policies or determining the benchmark interest rates in the economy. Now coming to the interest rates, this is decided based on the inflation rates in the economy. So one important consideration while determining the interest rates under monetary policy is the inflation rates existing in the economy. So based on inflation rates, MPC makes either expansionary monetary policy or contractionary monetary policy. So what is expansionary and what is contractionary monetary policy? Expansionary monetary policy means that the money supply would be increased, and contractionary means money supply would be reduced, and it is based on the inflation rates. Now let us see how is inflation related with this expansion and contraction. So what is inflation? Inflation essentially means there is an increase in the prices of commodities in the market, that is there is an excess of money supply in the market. So when inflation is high, it means that money supply is high in the market. So RBI or the Monetary Policy Committee would want to reduce the money supply. So remember that when inflation rates are high, the interest rates would increase in order to reduce the money supply. So the exact opposite will happen when there is decreased money supply. That is, when there is decreased money supply, it means there is decreased inflation. And when the inflation rates are less, the interest rates also will be cut short in order to increase the money supply in the economy. Now, we have seen that with the budget announcements, there is a chance of increase in the core inflation rates. That is, there are chances of increasing the money supply in the economy. So, essentially, the MPC or the Monetary Policy Committee would take contractionary monetary policies where MPC will try to decrease the money supply by increasing the interest rates. So what can be the impact? The interest rates in the economy will go up. That means the industries will face a credit shortage. So with this credit shortage, it would be difficult for the industries to find credit for investment or to continue their production process. This will have a serious impact on initiatives like Make in India, in the industrial sector, in the manufacturing sector, etc. So this is one possible output or impact of this budgetary announcements on the monetary policy. So from the economics point of view, we need to understand this as well. So this is all from my side about the analysis of budget 2019. If you have any queries regarding my explanation, please feel free to email me at joycey.studyiq@gmail.com, or you can get in touch with me on my Facebook page. You can inbox me. Thank you. I wish you all a very good day.